Hi, very good morning. I'm Dr. Janak Patel. I'm a general physician. I'm not an endocrinologist. Today we'll be discussing on one of the very interesting topic we call as a hypoparathyroidism. Once in a while you will come across in your everyday practice person with a hypoparathyroidism. Means decreased function of parathyroid gland, decreased production of parathormone. We'll be discussing under different headings, that is definition, etiology, pathophysiology, clinical features, investigations, treatment and complications. So what is hypoparathyroidism? Hypoparathyroidism is a state due to decreased secretion of parathormone, or we call decreased activity of parathormone. And in that, it is characterized by decreased level of calcium and increased level of phosphate. So we call hypocalcemia with hyperphosphatemia is a characteristic of a hypoparathyroidism, and it will be resulting into group of symptoms and signs. There are synonymous names for hypoparathyroidism like tetany, hypocalcemia, DiGeorge syndrome, osteomalacia, and similar condition you can get in a case of a pseudo hypoparathyroidism. And you know very well the active form of parathormone is IPTH. It is called intact parathormone. Now, hypoparathyroidism can be because of deficient parathyroid secretions or because of inability to make an active form of PTH, that is IPTH, or inability of the kidney and bones to respond to PTH. We call resistance to PTH. So these are the three main category which you will come across in case of hypoparathyroidism. If parathyroid gland itself is not manufacturing, it is parathyroid deficiency. And if there is no formation, inability to make an active form of IPTH, that is second category. And third, when the kidney and bones do not respond to parathormone secretion. So in this condition, the parathormone level is normal, but still person gets hypoparathyroid clinical features. Classical example, pseudo hypoparathyroidism. So we can divide into different types. Hypoparathyroidism can be acute or chronic depending upon the onset. We can call clear-cut clinical findings, we call overt variety, or we call latent variety. Depending upon the etiology, congenital, acquired, or in congenital we call inherited variety, and it may be for a short period we call transient or permanent. And there is one variety, what we have already told you, that there is a resistance of parathormone to act on bone and on kidney, and that gives rise to resistant variety of a parathormone, and that we call as a pseudo hypoparathyroidism. And you can have a pseudo hypoparathyroidism, which is a variety of a pseudo hypoparathyroidism, but calcium level is normal, while in a pseudo calcium level is low. So these are the different terminology which can be utilized in a case of hypoparathyroidism. Acquired variety, transient variety, and congenital variety. In a congenital variety, classical example DiGeorge syndrome, where the parathyroid gland do not develop properly in a fetus, and there is an inherited variety where because of chemicals or because of antibody there is an autoimmune damage to the parathyroid gland, we call as an inherited variety. You can have temporary, permanent, or hungry bone syndrome. Temporary is for a short period, less than 2 months, between 2 months to maximum 6 months, while permanent more than 6 months, lasting for more than 6 months. And in a hungry bone syndromes, you will come across a person who has been operated and following a surgery, the bone uptakes large quantity of calcium and phosphorus. So it will end up with hypocalcemia. So severe rapid beginning of an immediate post-operative period, decrease in the calcium and decrease in the phosphorus, that will result into a condition that is because the bone is deficient in calcium and phosphorus, and as soon as the parathyroid gland is removed, person will have a shift of calcium and phosphorus into bone. This is accounting for 5 to 13%. Temporary is almost average is 10%, and permanent is 1%. Pseudo-hypoparathyroidism, I've already told you that it is characterized by lack of response of a parathormone on kidney and bones, which will end up with hypocalcemia, hyperphosphatemia, and normal level of parathormone. Normal level of parathormone. A classical example of that variety is Albright's syndrome or Albright hereditary osteodystrophica, where fourth and fifth metacarpal is short. There is a short stature, round face, and often there is a mental retardation. This is a characteristic of an Albright syndrome. And kidney response as parathormone was absent. Kidney response is as if parathormone is absent, and parathormone receptor itself are normal, but there is a defective post receptor mechanism due to mutation, and that is because of abnormal post receptor mechanism, and that produces parathormone resistance, and that we call as a pseudo hypoparathyroidism. And that is characterized by, we already told you, two types. Type 1A, which is an example of an Albright hereditary osteodystrophica, or short form it is also called as a AHO, where the person might have a multi-hormone resistance, parathormone resistance, thyroid resistance, and even FSH and LH resistance. And that will end up with a short stature, obesity, short metacarpal, metatarsal bones are also short, and there is a mental retardation. And because parathormone cannot act on a bone and kidney, person will have a hypocalcemia, hyperphosphatemia, and parathormone level may be normal or even it may be elevated. And also person can have a TSH resistance leading to hypothyroidism, and FSH-LH resistance leading to hypogonadism. So hypogonadism, hypothyroidism with hypoparathyroidism together is a classical finding in a case of what we call as Albright hereditary osteodystrophica or Albright syndrome. There is something called as a pseudo hypoparathyroidism, where the person is having all features like Albright hereditary osteodystrophica, but there is a normal serum calcium level, normal phosphate level, and parathormone level. Normal serum calcium, phosphate, and parathormone level. While here there is hypocalcemia, hyperphosphatemia, and elevated parathormone. Now, etiology wise, we have already told you, you can divide into congenital and acquired. One we call as a primary, where you have removed the parathyroid gland and person goes into hypoparathyroidism. Congenital absence, you can have familial hypoparathyroidism, which is associated with chronic mucocutaneous candidiasis and primary adrenal insufficiency. It can be autoimmune polyendocrine syndrome. Short form it is called APS, autoimmune polyendocrine syndrome. Or it can be autoimmune regulator gene defects. Autoimmune regulatory gene defects, mutation in that. Idiopathic hypoparathyroidism. Functional, where it can be because of chronic hypomagnesemia, because magnesium is necessary for parathormone release, and that can also end up with what we call as a hypoparathyroidism. So it can be post-surgical, secondary to autoimmune, following iodine 131 therapy for Graves' disease, which will also produce damage to parathyroid gland. Secondary to iron overload, Wilson disease, this will be a storage disorder producing a damage to parathyroid gland. D. George syndrome, sorry, spelling R is missing. Here also disease, that spelling is wrong. D. George syndrome, which will be a genetic disorder where the chromosome number 22 is absent. Hereditary form of hypoparathyroidism along with hypothyroidism, secondary to magnesium depletion, invasion by tumor, and there is another syndrome called Kearns-Shirey syndrome. Again, this is a sporadic onset is before the age of 20 and it is associated with ophthalmoplegia, complete heart block with hypoparathyroidism. Hereditary nephrosis can be also associated. These are a big list of all different conditions which can end up with hypoparathyroidism. Parathyroid gland formation, parathyroid gland destruction, reduced parathyroid gland functions, autosomal dominant, hypocalcemic, hypocalciuria, or it can be because of resistance like pseudo-hypoparathyroidism, transient pseudo-hypoparathyroidism, hypomagnesemia, etc. There are a lot of conditions which can produce hypoparathyroidism. One variety, autoimmune hypoparathyroidism, can be because of formation of parathyroid antibodies, and in that it is associated with polyendocrinopathy, candidiasis, etc. And it is also labeled as APCED, autoimmune polyendocrinopathy, candidiasis, and ectodermal dysplasia. So AP is for autoimmune polyendocrinopathy, C is for candidiasis, and ED is for ectodermal dysplasia. It is autosomal recessive and it is because of AIRE gene defects. Then there is another syndrome called as the HDR syndrome where you get a hypoparathyroidism, deafness, it is a sensory neuronal deafness, and renal anomaly. So H is for hypoparathyroidism, D is for deafness, and R is for renal anomaly. And it is because of this gene defects, which is located in chromosome number 10. So it can be iatrogenic, it can be autoimmune, it can be congenital, it can be neonatal, or it can be infiltration of parathyroid gland, or it is because of the different deficiency. Iatrogenic can be lot of these conditions like post-surgical, post-thyroidectomy, extensive irradiation, and finally it will end up with a hungry bone syndrome following a surgery. Autoimmune variety, type 1 variety, it is a polyglandular syndromes, or it can be HAM, which is hypoparathyroidism with hypoparathyroidism, destruction of the gland, primary hypoparathyroidism due to destruction of the parathyroid gland due to autoimmune disorders. So hemochromatosis and thalassemia can have iron overload and destruction of the parathyroid gland. Wilson disease can be because of copper overload. Hypermagnesemia has been demonstrated to decrease the parathormone release. Aluminum deposition can also produce a damage to the parathyroid gland. And even a hypomagnesemia has a reversible function. It is necessary for release of parathormone. So these are all the different mechanisms which we call as an iron deficiency. This is because of iron overload, this is because of copper overload, this is because of magnesium overload, this is because of aluminum, and this is because of deficiency of magnesium. Infiltration of parathyroid gland, hemochromatosis, Wilson's, granuloma, amyloidosis, syphilis, progressive systemic sclerosis, etc. can be the common cause. Out of which hemochromatosis, hemosiderosis, Wilson disease, aluminum, etc. can be more common than others. In neonatal, mother with hypercalcemia can end up with hypoparathyroidism. And these are all big list of congenital conditions like DiGeorge syndromes, isolated autosomal dominant or autosomal recessive conditions, etc. Idiopathic variety can be multi-endocrine deficiency, which is because of autoimmune disorder, where you will have a candidiasis with multi-endocrine disorders. Now you know very well, if the person has got a hypoparathyroidism, it will decrease the reabsorption of calcium from bone, decreases the calcium level, so person will develop hypocalcemia. Because of hypocalcemia, neuromuscular irritability, and it will end up with tetany. So deficient parathormone secretions or inability to make active form, or because of peripheral resistance, the person is not able to have all this, and it will end up with a neuromuscular irritability. There is also irritability of the nerve and irritability of the myoneural junction. So neuromuscular irritability is much more dominant than suppression of a muscle. So muscle suppression also produces muscle contraction inability, but neuromuscular irritability is more prominent, so it will end up with a symptom signs finding of tetany. So hypoparathyroidism will have two things: calcium level will be low and parathormone phosphate level will be high. And if you estimate the parathormone level will be low. So that is a characteristic of hypoparathyroidism. When in certain condition, particularly peripheral resistance condition, like Albright syndrome, where you will have low calcium, elevated phosphate level, but parathormone level will be normal, because parathormone cannot act on bone and kidney. So this will be a characteristics. As far as the clinical features is concerned, it can be acute, like tetany, tingling numbness of the fingers, muscle spasm, twitchings, and you can have a Chvostek sign positive and Trojes sign positive. In a chronic condition, lethargy, muscle spasm, calcification in cornea and lens, you can have even calcification in brains, convulsions, laryngospasm, or we even call stridor, obstruction of the larynx, even deathmosis, even the person can have feeling as if he is going to die. So these are all the features which you can get. The muscle spasm produces a peculiar hand. There is a flexion at wrist, adduction of the thumb, flexion at metacarpophalangeal joint, and this is typically described as obstetrician hand or Ecosian hand. Similar type of spasm you can get in a foot also, tip of the foot. And spasm of facial muscle is called sardonic form, like Rhizos sardonicus, and it is described also as a fish mouth. Person can also have a trismus. This is because of spasm of masseter muscle. Person can get even convulsions. You can have calcium deposits in lens producing cataracts, early cataract, hair loss, dry skin, and even nail deformities, malformed nails. All these are the findings in case of hypocalcemia because of hypoparathyroidism. You can have anxiety, paresthesia, hoarseness of voice because of laryngospasm. Wheezing can happen, person can have dyspnea, and person can have a feeling as if he is going to die. There will be resistance to digitalis, there can be hypotension, person can have a refractory heart failure with cardiomegaly, person can have a candidiasis infection, poor tooth development in children. There are some of these findings. There is one finding which is called as a Selling-Singer syndrome. Selling-Singer syndrome in tetany. If the patient lower limb is held at the knee joint and flex strongly at the hip, there will be soon an extensor spasm at the knee joint with extreme supination of foot. This is a typical finding which you can demonstrate in T10, severe hypocalcemia. There is another finding we call as a Hoffman's sign. There is an increased excitability of an electrical stimulus in a sensory nerve, particularly ulnar nerve. If you taste in an ulnar nerve, you will have a Hoffman sign positive. And you can have a laryngeal stridor because of a spasm of vocal cords, larynx, trachea. Increased neuromuscular irritability will produce paresthesia in lips, tongue, finger, feet, etc. Muscle cramps, weakness, headache, carpopedal spasm typical. This is a classical finding which you can demonstrate. If you tap on the face close to the jaw, close to what we call as a TM joint over the facial nerve, you will get a facial muscle spasm. It is called Chvostek's sign. And when it is positive, it indicates irritability of a nerve. And if you tie a BP cuff in upper limb and elevate the pressure just above the systolic blood pressure and keep it for 2 to 5 minutes, you will get a spasm of the carpal. So that is called carpal spasm. And this is given a name, Trozius sign. This is Chvostek's sign. Tap the facial nerve and you will get a spasm. While Trozius sign, you have to elevate the blood pressure and maintain it for 2 to 5 minutes and you will get a spasm for 2 to 3 minutes. You will be able to elicit clear cut. Trozius sign. This is Chvostek's sign. This is Trozius sign. You can get seizures. You can have altered mental status. Cardiomegaly with congestive heart failure and blocks, because hypocalcemia will produce long QT syndrome, severe laryngeal spasm, and person can have a stridor. So altered mental status, confusion, anxiety, depression, emotional instability, hallucination. Sometimes you can have a psychosis. You can have even Parkinsonism like movements, papilledema, and in eye you can have a calcification in the lens and early cataract. In cardiovascular system, prolonged QT, cardiac arrhythmias, and what we call as severe congestive cardiac failure. Even teeth abnormality you can get, dental abnormality also you can have. Eruption of the dental in a children can be defective. In a long-standing hypoparathyroidism, cataract, malformation of teeth, intracranial calcifications, renal stones, renal failure can be the findings. So symptoms can be from head till toe. We have given all the detailed symptoms and this is showing you in a one single picture. In a pseudo hypoparathyroidism, I have already showed you hypogonadism with hypothyroidism with hypoparathyroidism. And person is having short stature, obesity, hypogonadism. Fourth and fifth metatarsal is short. Metatarsal bones are also defective. So this combination together we call as a Albright hereditary osteodystrophica, AHO, or you can call as Albright syndrome also. And in a pseudo, it is same like AHO, but normal serum calcium, normal phosphate, and normal parathyroid. So this is classical Albright, short stature. You can see fourth and fifth metatarsal, metacarpal. fourth and fifth finger are short, and when they close the fist you can't see the knuckle here. This is because of defective metacarpals. These are short and there is defective. You can see the knuckles here. This is very characteristic of Albright syndrome, and person will have a hypogonadism. Hypogonadism, very common, typical. You can see these knuckles, this fourth and fifth knuckles are absent. Knuckle you can't see. So dimple knuckle as a result of a short fifth metacarpal bone. Very characteristic. Fourth and fifth dimple you will get at fourth and fifth. So these bones are short. You can see easily in a X-ray picture. Any algorithm, if you want to confirm the diagnosis of, you will have to confirm that there is a hyperirritability. So there will be spasm of the facial muscle by Chvostek's sign and spasm of the carpal muscle, carpal, that is Strozius sign. And by laboratory parameter hypocalcemia, usually there is a hyperphosphatemia. This is wrong. Do the level of parathermone. If parathermone level is high, suspect pseudo hypoparathyroidism. While if parathermone level is low, hypoparathyroidism. Very commonly post-operative, post-radiation, following thyroidectomy, congenital defects, or you can come across even in case of Albright syndromes, etc. in all those conditions. And try to differentiate between these two groups, hypothyroidism and pseudo hypoparathyroidism. You can easily differentiate. Following a surgery, if suddenly the calcium level starts becoming very low, very fast, and even the phosphate level is low, hungry bone syndrome. So rapid decrease in calcium and phosphates, hungry bone syndrome. It is usually following a thyroidectomy or following a parathyroidectomy, and sometime in a CA prostate who is on estrogen therapy. Not uncommon, but may be seen occasionally, because the CA prostate operated and they are given estrogen very frequently for secondary metastasis. So that is typical hungry bone syndrome, in which you will have a hypocalcemia, hypophosphatemia associated with hypomagnesemia. So these three are lacking. Calcium, phosphate and magnesium are hypo, while potassium is high. So while treating, you have to keep a watch on potassium. So whenever you are treating this particular person, you have to keep a watch on potassium. So the simple most test is calcium level is low, phosphate level may be elevated, you can have an associated magnesium deficiency, IPTH level, that is intact PTH level, will be low. Blood urea creatinine you should examine to find out a damage to the kidney. Vitamin D3 level is examined to find out a person is having hypovitaminosis, because that can also produce hypocalcemia, other causes of hypocalcemia. And if alkaline phosphatase is altered, there is something happening to the bone. So try to evaluate. ECG wise, prolonged QT will be one of the finding in a case of what we call as a hypocalcemia. And skeletal bones will be showing you decreased bone mineral density, and also in a case of a pseudo hypoparathyroidism because of Albright syndrome or Albright condition, Albright syndrome, where fourth and fifth metacarpal will be short, classical. Bone biopsy can be done in a person with bone disorders. Chvostek sign and Trojes sign will be very important to differentiate a person who has got hyperirritable myoneural junctions and peripheral nerves and decreased calcium level. Very easy to diagnose what we call as hypocalcemic tetany. And in that, if parathermone level is low, it is a characteristic diagnosis of hypoparathyroidism. So primary hypoparathyroidism, serum PTH level will be low, calcium level will be low. In pseudo, parathermone level will be high. calcium level will be low. In secondary, parathermone level will be low, calcium level will be high. So in a secondary hypoparathyroidism, calcium level is high and parathermone level is low. And if you try to estimate the vitamin D level, if the person has got vitamin D level low, it is because of hypovitaminosis. Even magnesium level low can also produce parathermone deficiency. So if a person has got hypomagnesemia with low parathermone level, low calcium level, it is because of hypomagnesemia. And phosphorus level, PTH is a phosphaturic hormone. So try to estimate the parathermone level and serum phosphate level. So if serum phosphate level starts getting elevated, it is one of the finding in case of a primary hypoparathyroidism. Urine test should be done to look for calcium and phosphorus level in urine. ECG for a prolonged QT and cardiac arrhythmias. So renal stones, look for renal stones, look for urinary calcium and phosphorus, do a blood test, look for QT prolongations. So all those. Alkaline phosphatase is usually normal, but if it is abnormal, it is suggestive of something is happening to the bone. Phosphorus level is usually elevated, vitamin D level is usually low, magnesium level may be low, parathermone level is usually low, and you can see in a skull there will be what we call as a calcification in the basal ganglia. You can see in a X-ray skull. CT scan will show you that particular finding, and in ECG QT prolongation. This is how you approach to the patient of hypocalcemia. I am not going into tremendous detail. So level wise, less than 10.5, we call that as a mild. Normal level, we call that as between 8.5 to 10.5. And if it decreases below 8.5, then we label that as hypocalcemia. And further, if serum parathermone level and calcium levels are normal, you must think in terms of pseudo hypoparathyroidism. In a primary, both are low, parathermone is low, calcium is low. This can happen, parathermone normal and calcium normal in a normal person, and also suspect if the person is having a pseudo hypoparathyroidism. While in secondary, parathermone is low, calcium level is high, because it is secondary to some other conditions. Measurement of 25-hydroxy vitamin D is very important to find out vitamin D deficiency, to exclude vitamin D deficiency as a cause of hypocalcemia. So if it is normal, then it rules out hypocalcemia secondary due to vitamin D deficiency. Magnesium level is also important, because if a person is having hypomagnesemia, it may be responsible for parathermone deficiency. So if a person has got hypocalcemia, hypomagnesemia and parathermone level low, it is suggestive of a hypomagnesemia. If a person has got 25 low, hypocalcemia plus parathermone level is also low, it will be suggestive of a hypovitaminosis, in which you might have a parathermone level normal. Serum phosphorus level is also sometimes important, because parathermone is a phosphaturic hormone. So in absence of phosphorus level in blood rise, so if person has got high level of phosphate in blood and parathermone level is low, it is suggestive of what we call as a primary hypoparathyroidism. And this is a list which tells you that look at the calcium, look at the ionized calcium, look at the serum phosphate and parathermone. You will be able to differentiate vitamin D deficiency, CKD, hypoparathyroidism, pseudo hypoparathyroidism, acute pancreatitis, hypomagnesemia, etc. This is a chart, whatever I have told you will be easily being identifiable. If a person has got hypoproteinemia, calcium level is low, total calcium level is low, phosphate level is normal, ionized serum calcium level is normal, parathermone level is normal. So only total serum calcium level is low. In alkalosis, serum parathermone may be slightly elevated. Usually it is normal. Phosphate level is normal. Ionized calcium level will be slightly reduced. And this will happen with a hyperventilation, particularly in a hysterical individual. Respiratory hyperventilation. And once in a while, in a metabolic syndrome because of a Conn syndrome, this will be metabolic alkalosis, in which you will have a little decrease in the ionized calcium level, while all other are normal. While in a hypoproteinemia, serum calcium level will be low, others are normal. While in vitamin D deficiency, you will see that vitamin D is deficient, calcium is deficient, ionized calcium is low, phosphate is low, and secondary to vitamin D deficiency, you can have a parathermone level elevation for compensation. In a chronic renal failure, calcium level will be low, vitamin D level will be low, but serum phosphate level will become high because of retention. And secondary to hypocalcemia, person will have a secondary hyperparathyroidism. So these are called secondary hyperparathyroidism. In a hypoparathyroidism, calcium low, ionized calcium low, serum phosphate will be high, and parathermone level will be low. These are called primary hypoparathyroidism. In pseudo hypocalcemia, and you will have even hypophosphatemia, I think. So I think this is something is wrong here. And phosphorus array, what we call as a TSH level will be high. That will be pseudo hypoparathyroidism. While in an acute pancreatitis, parathermone level will be high, while calcium, ionized calcium, and phosphate level all may be low. In hypomagnesemia, total calcium, ionized calcium will be low, phosphate level may be also low, and parathermone level may be low. But magnesium, calcium, if it is low, that is in favor of hypomagnesemia, because parathermone secretion will not be there. So you will have a low parathermone. So low parathermone, low magnesium, low calcium will tell you classical hypomagnesemia. So these are all the conditions which you should try. How you manage? One, medical management. In case of an acute emergency, IV calcium gluconate. In a person with a hyperventilation, we call breathe into bag, particularly in metabolic acidosis. And in calcium level, which is little low, give little calcium in diet. Oral calcium you can give, vitamin D you can give. You can use thiazide diuretic for forced diuresis, etc. So in an acute attack of tetany, you can give 10 to 60 ml of 10% calcium gluconate, dilute in 50 ml of 5% dextrose or normal saline, and give it IV slowly over a period of 5 minutes. A classical treatment for what we call as an acute tetany attack who has got severe hypocalcemia, laryngeal spasm, has got severe respiratory distress, etc. And if a person continue with hypocalcemia, you can further give IV infusion by 10 ampoules of calcium gluconate, that is 900 milligram of calcium in 1 liter of 5% dextrose or sodium chloride in a 24 hours, very, very slowly. You will have to give very slowly over a period of 24 hours. And these are all those what we have. You can give vitamin D, you can give oral calcium, you can use anticonvulsive therapy if the person is getting severe convulsions. And in a person with a bone hungry syndrome, you might have to replace calcium from outside, calcium and vitamin D from outside. So this will be the treatment in that particular group. In a person with a hypoparathyroidism, diet rich in calcium, low in phosphorus. Oral calcium tablet should be given. Vitamin D replacement can be done, and you can use synthetic parathormone because they are invariably having low parathormone level. So medication, surgical care, and consultation is very important, and diet. So these are all the material which are rich in calcium. So you give a diet which is rich in calcium like dairy products, almonds, leafy vegetables, oats, apricots, sea vegetables, etc. You can use calcium salts like calcium carbonate, calcium citrate, calcium gluconate, vitamin D preparations you can use, and these are all the material which are rich in calcium like milk, yogurt, soya beans, cheese, ladyfinger, orange, almonds, cinnamon, then sesame seeds, etc. These are all rich in calcium, and calcium requirement will be higher in a person who has developed hypocalcemia secondary due to hungry bone syndrome or because of primary hypoparathyroidism. And you can, these are all the different types of vitamin D salts, vitamin D replacement. You can use biphosphonates. So biphosphonates will be a drug which will help you to bind calcium to the phosphate molecules and help in deposition in bone. As far as surgical care is concerned, when the person is operated, following a surgery, you have to take an extra care so that it does not develop hypocalcemia, or we call hypoparathyroidism. Take a care post-operative in a person who is undergoing a surgery on thyroid gland or on a parathyroid gland. Also in a person who is undergoing radioactive iodine therapy for thyroid disorders or for parathyroid disorders. That is hungry bone syndrome. Complication wise, person can develop cataract, can have tetany, convulsions, laryngeal spasm, can have severe hypotension, resistant congestive heart failure, malformation of teeth, etc. And intrauterine, intracranial calcifications can be there. Renal stone formation can be also there, and person can end up with a CKD. And oral candidiasis is also quite common. These are all the complications which you can come across in a person. This is cataract, this is renal stone, etc. So here I end my lecture on a hypoparathyroidism. I hope this will be helpful. Hypoparathyroidism will also give rise to what we call as a hypocalcemia. And one of the finding in hypocalcemia is hypocalcemic tetany. We'll be discussing separately on a tetany, because tetany can be because of hypocalcemia, can be because of other condition also. We'll discuss that separately. I hope this lecture will be very helpful to you. See you next in next lecture.